In this practical work session, I'm going to share with you how I use Obsidian and other tools in order to be more organized, process information faster, and to ultimately find the critical answers that I need to get results for my clients. I'm sharing this information for you as a knowledge worker, as somebody who's in the business of words, to demonstrate to you what it really looks like to use these tools together. Now, typically, I have two monitors or three monitors if I'm working on a laptop, and the monitors have different applications up. And in this demonstration, I'm going to show you answering the reply on a YouTube video. So I'm Justin Hitt with this is a from my desk edition in the newsletter here, and I want to thank everybody for being on the call. I'm going to go through a period of time where we're going to just walk through the session. I'm going to show you kind of workflow, and then at the end, I'm going to answer questions. What you're looking for here is ways to improve your own workflow, ways that you can look at data differently, the value of associating records and context, and then ultimately the end result is a kind of like a second brain that you can go deep dive into. So the question was, and we're going to start at the beginning here. So the question was, with so many notes, this looks wonderful. So my Obsidian repository of notes. Obsidian is a note-taking application. There's quite a few note-taking applications out there, but mine contains 26,985 notes. That is not something to be proud of. That is just a combination of 23 years of notes. And I will tell you right up front, many of these notes are unorganized and need to be cleaned up. That's because I started out with just little notes everywhere. Word document here, a Word document there. I had to convert Word perfect documents to get them in here as far as just text notes and everything else. So it's like everything in one place. Now, what are these notes? These notes are articles, special reports, consultation notes, notes from projects I did for clients. There are no finished deliverables in there. So once we do a deliverable for a client, I delete the data associated with that is not necessary to keep or that would not be recycled. And I'll show you how I determine that. But again, the new notes are only as valuable as your ability to use them. And that's why this gentleman or gentle lady is asking about search. Does it become too complex to search? Now, you're reading the same text I'm reading, and I am translating in my head what they're saying based on some language dynamics. So what you'll discover is that I may be an unusual case in how I approach this information because my background is risk management, interpreting help desk tickets from systems administration, the refinement of the activity, which I credit to how I manage these notes, gives me a little bit more context about what they're looking for here. And plus, my brain has processed every comment that comes in on this particular YouTube video. So you'll find in my system here, I have YouTube videos that I'm processing the comments for, and then in those comments, I'm actually making a note because very often I can write much more than that'll fit in a response. So as you can see here, and I'm just doing a real quick search, this is a different comment on the same system. Only the significant parts are in here. So again, this is a working session. Don't follow along with what we're doing here as much as pay close attention about how I'm using this platform. Actually, there's a new note here that I'll have to address later, but let's get right into this one. So I said, hey, look, well, he said search is complicated. I said, why would it be complicated? Google isn't difficult to use. So the reference is that Google has millions and millions of documents, and we're able to search the documents. But one context I missed in his question was the one of finding useful information. So here's his original note here, captured. Here's my response. Why would it be complicated? Is Google difficult to use? It has billions of documents. How you structure your notes, this is really the lesson here, is how you structure your notes. And you notice I just modified this note. These notes are reference materials. So the important part is, again, how you structure the note. And no, I think that even should be bold it. Now, the original use of that note over here in the reply, I treat the YouTube comments as like a message board, or sometimes people will email me questions and comments. They all get processed. So again, like if you have questions after this, I'll take the time to answer the questions because this session is recorded and this session produces content that can be transcribed. And in the world of information, your ability to organize, compile, and deliver is king. There's a reason I get my rate of each day, and we won't go into that here. If you're working with me, I'm going to give you a rate sheet that has a 15-minute billable rate and then a full day rate. And then, of course, we can do better rates if you're getting a 6-month contract. There's a reason I can turn around highly detailed analysis of consent orders, highly detailed analysis of next steps to take, commissioned reports. So, and I'm showing you it right here so that you can emulate it, because while it may seem like a unique case, and it may seem like there's lateral thinking going on here, I sincerely believe you can emulate the skill set. And so I get back to them, and my key point is that how you structure the notes matters. If you want to improve your ability to search for information, the structure of your notes helps you with that context, keywords, front matter, all those details. I'll show you how that work. Now he replies back. I don't know if it's a he or she. Doesn't matter to me. The replies back, forgive my expression. And so I'm going to copy this and put it in here because I think the context is important. And they have a few keywords in here that are valuable, but they say, forgive my expression, searching is fine. I was meaning when it becomes more than a certain amount. See, I'm establishing a dialogue here. This is what they said. This is what I said in response. And I might even notate, I have certain notations that I use. So I may notate that I respond to the individual's name. If this person is going to be, like if this person comes up in the system again, I'll make a record for them. But this is their name. I've put it in the way it is. It says, forgive my expression. When there's too many records, searching is fine. Search will always find something. And then they have trouble figuring out where they want to go next. Now that says to me that they didn't have a specific goal in mind when they started to search. Unfortunately, with the popularity of Google, with the popularity of search tools, it becomes the reflex method of finding something. But if you don't know what you're looking for, it's difficult to find. And see, this is where I get that key here. Finding myself disturbed by other elements. Now, if they speak Korean, they're translating in their head to English. So when I reply, I'm going to give them a short message and then also use AI to translate it into Korean. So hopefully we can help them solve the challenge of having so much information to search. Now, fortunately, I've helped out with document repositories that have hundreds of thousands of documents. I worked with the French Navy, the U.S. Navy, other organizations that had millions of lines of code and documentation and materials that are in repositories. Searching is not the problem if we follow an approach or a methodology. So I'm writing a reply here, and I'm not going to read the whole reply, but essentially I write the reply in my notes verbosely. So what do I mean by that? It means that I write an answer, the best answer for the person if they were a paying client. So if I'm sitting down with him and now I understand that it's not that search is difficult, it's just that it comes back with too much stuff, or it doesn't come back with what they thought in their head they were looking for. Now, if you know exactly what you're looking for, then you shouldn't be searching, you should be doing. There's something that's a disconnect here. There's some question mark, and that's why we use some kind of thesis to find the materials. But I still believe that how you structure your notes matters. And so I reply with how I'm structuring my materials in the concept of person, place, thing, and concept, and offering them an approach so that I can let them know that again, it's how you map your search out. It's how you prepare your search. That starts when you're taking notes. Because remember, Obsidian is a note-taking system that allows you to take notes on a variety of topics in plain text using the Markdown format and language. And through that, it is allowing you to come back and search and do different and interesting things like document associations, some machine learning and different types of things with plugins. We've talked about these things in other programs, so I'm not going to go into detail there. Right now, we're specifically focusing on how do you take notes so that you can find results. We all know how it is. You go to a conference, you take 4 or 5 pages of notes, and you get home, the notes go on a shelf somewhere, you never look at them again. However, I argue that if you review those notes, that you're going to be able to retain more of that information. And if you use those notes to create a deliverable or to implement what you've learned, you won't have to search for the information because it'll already be in your brain. We want to develop the brain muscle. And so that's what we're talking about here. So how do we develop the brain muscle? We develop the brain muscle by association. Those boring old classes I took on neurology and how the brain works and how the brain stores information, and then again, how adults learn, is that the brain doesn't remember things. It remembers concepts and the mapping of those concepts and recalls that information for a specific purpose. So the stronger the purpose is and more clear the purpose is, the more likely that whatever search returns will cultivate that answer. Now that's very important to understand because search will always return something, especially Google and all these other search engine platforms. Now here, search sometimes doesn't return anything because we put it in the system. We only want to put high priority things in there. So if I make a real quick comment, I'm not going to have all these notes. There won't be all this context. There's no need for mapping. But in this case, I do have a special report on how to ask questions and how to use questions to extract information. So first off, when we're taking notes, we're going to have a person, place, or thing, or concept to form a map of content. So the example that I use here in the map of content is my risk management map of content for an upcoming book that we're putting together. And so I'm not going to go to a topical search. I'm going to search by title of document because I have a document format that I use that helps me organize the files or the specific notes. So here's the risk management map of content. Some of it is action items because there's got to be a deliverable out of this. This is questions I need to answer in my book. Here's a preliminary outline for the book itself. I will go in and cross-reference because I do the podcast and the newsletter and everything like that. I will cross-reference these segments there. So if we were writing a big proposal for a federal contract and the contract has 16 compartments or 16 parts to it, some of it which might be boilerplate, we can build an outline and then we can reference to the different documents in our SharePoint, in our contract management system, wherever it is, and then we can start building out that document. If you're writing complex materials, if you're writing code, if you're building out, so pseudocode we used to do this with, if you're writing a book or a report that positions you as an expert in the marketplace, the map of content around these specific topics help you produce kind of an association or a relationship. Now, like I showed you in the previous document, our previous we did another webinar. You can see what's happening here. See how this is all mapping out and ideas are starting to cluster. It makes it easier to see what materials I've already written. Why would you want to write a book from scratch when you can write it in how you take your notes? So I give them that idea and concept. That's all in here. Now, I explained what kind of deliverables are there. Okay, I go through and I talk about search doesn't always find what I know is in the system. So we take notes and we know there's an answer in there somewhere, but search isn't giving it to us. So how do we still get what we need to move forward without getting distracted? And again, that's what we're talking about here today. Knowledge workers, business owners, executives, project managers, copywriters, marketers, content creators, all need to know how to move forward towards a deliverable rather than getting stuck searching. So you're not just going to look in your notes. So I know there's a special report that has to do with asking questions. And what I like about this platform is it allows me to do notation. And I can just basically open up a task and say, find special report on asking better questions. I'm going to give it a creation reference. And now these things, they become second nature when you start using something like this. But I have now created what's called an anchor. And so I've anchored that side idea, that side concept, because I went over here to Paper Tiger because we have different systems to track things. And I already looked for questions, and I already looked for ask question. And oh, there you go. There's my report right there. I've got a reference code. See, I was just about to show you an example how sometimes you search and you don't find what you're looking for, even though you know it's there. And so I place an anchor in here to go search for it. And then in the course of giving this demonstration to you, I find a reference number. That reference number, when I'm ready to work on that special report, because see, right now I'm replying to somebody's question on a message board. And I'm going to take this text, simplify it, and I'll show you that in AI, simplify that, and then reply back in Korean, English and Korean. But there were 30 results associated to that catalog. So if this person comes back to me and says, hey, I'd like to do a paid consultation on how can I organize my notes so that I can be more productive in business, because again, we're talking about purpose. How can I be more productive in business? How can I finish my term paper? How can I write my dissertation? How can I write my doctorate dissertation or organize my research around a biology project? Oh, I can't always speak, but I could definitely find information and write it and organize it and stuff like that. But here's my point. I don't do this anymore. But back in the day when I was in high school, and then later when I was in college, I actually wrote master's theses and edited people's doctoral theses in the area of business relationships. And this was mostly because I was running a computer consultancy, sales and marketing, and also some tech documents. So some people were doing actually real research and technology related things associated with information. I guess there's an information security degree or information technology degree. And so I would help them write their paper. I wouldn't finish their papers. In fact, I would embed little secrets inside the paper. So I knew if they turned around and sold the paper, or they turned around and just turned it in as it was, because ultimately I was being paid to write their master's paper. And again, busy executives pay people to do that kind of work. But that's where I kind of honed in this research, because those papers were peer reviewed. Those papers were presented, and some of those papers were at top tier universities. And this really came from doing other people's homework in high school. I just like to do this. But the skills that I've developed, the skills that I've learned from other people, the skills that I've seen used in a workplace environment are easy to adopt. So I have my original task, and instead of threading off and being distracted, this is how to stop distraction. I create an anchor. Okay, I'm recalling myself back into here. Now I went off on a tangent by showing you that the key reference, because we're using keys and reference in here, that key reference, by the way, this whole reply is relevant to this because it could turn into a consulting engagement. So I'm going to use my front matter to associate this with the catalog item, because when I did this search, I see I have other podcasts. So the benefits of asking better questions. See over here on the side? How to ask useful questions, knowing things rather than searching for things. I could build out a whole map of content on asking questions. But if I'm doing a map of content on asking questions, I'm not finishing this audio presentation or this special, you didn't dial in to see me go off on 5 tangents. So we have to focus back, and we do that by anchoring our activity into tasks. If I never find this report and finish this report, it's okay, because I finished the thing at hand, which is helping someone who has asked me a question. If this was a client, I wouldn't even be doing this call. This call is, I guess you guys are clients. So ultimately, we're doing this call to show you how this works. Now, what I've just done is you can see the brain is going everywhere, but because I'm anchoring on my screen by using a note-taking application, I don't have little random notes on my desk. I don't have to write anything. In fact, I could write an outline that says, here are the 5 things we're going to do today. Here's what we're going to cover on this call. We can do those things all in the note-taking application, and we can move from there. Now, when I was searching for asking better questions, because I am looping back around to my original, example there. And again, at the end of this call, we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to go one-on-one, and we're going to share screens, and we're going to make sure all the questions are answered. I actually went through here and I said, ask better questions, because that is contextual. So this guy is asking me how to search when you've got so many documents. I've got 26,000 documents. If I want to learn about something that has related to asking better questions, I would search for a contextual term. And by the way, this longer format here is going to be the show notes for this discussion we're having right now. So I've narrowed my scope and context with the purpose of answering this individual's question, and I have a keyword concept. Now, within that keyword concept, this is actually VS Code, and I pulled up the keyword concept here and found there was a duplicate document. So 21629 and 53500 are both the same document. And so I got a little tangent there to go find those documents and to make sure that I don't have a duplicate in my system. And so if you feel like you get distracted and that's taking you away from your work, then it's okay. That's just the way brains work. Because a brain is going to see a shiny object and they're going to run off one way. And they see another shiny object, they're going to run off a different way. That is what he's asking about. So in his case, he split his vault. So now he can't search all of his documents. They're all over the place now. That's the same problem that people have. That's the problem I had, and the reason that I consolidated all my documents into one system while I converted all these documents into text and put them someplace. So to avoid the tangent, we are going to use different tools, and we're going to open up a side window, and this is very important. Let's see. This is one of the documents here. And then this other one over here, we're going to open this to the tab to the right, and we're going to see that both of these documents are pretty much exactly the same, but this document over here on our right-hand side has been more recently edited, okay, because the format is nicer and the order is better. What we do while we're going through and searching for something is we're improving the context. We're refining the context of the documents themselves. So actually, I wrote strategic relations, better questions. Now we know this concept is related to catalog code. Oh, we got to get that catalog code. And so I have still open my Paper Tiger. So we're going to leave a few windows open here and there so we can jump between windows. But now I put this key reference in here. Now this document over here, we know it's a duplicate, so we're just going to delete it. We don't need 26,000 documents if we have duplicates. Now we see this other document has a similar name. It is a duplicate. It looks like notes. I'm going to tell it it's type document notes. And then we're going to build in our context. And this context is strategic relations. Now, I also look down, this document is business relationships, and it's not related to the Better Questions book. Because remember, we started out answering someone's questions. My brain said, hey, I've got a book about this, and if I could just give him the book, then I don't have to answer his email. I could edit the book a little bit based on his feedback, and I can say, hey, what do you think about this? Now, I don't know that the people answering questions or asking questions on YouTube are qualified prospects, but if it was pre-qualified prospect, maybe a newsletter subscriber, I'm going to go get you a copy of that book because that book has an offer in it. All my books have offers in it. A lot of folks will pay me just to help them implement the book. Again, because I've already done all the work and you can benefit from it. But in this case, we have a document that is similarly related because strategic relationships and asking better questions is about finding the similarities and differences between ideas and concepts so that we can get solve problems better, so we can move forward. So I see in this document a person. So remember, I said over here in my reply that we create maps of content for people, places, things, and concepts. And this person is mentioned here as the author of a book. And in this particular system, these brackets tell me that this is now an association to an individual. Okay, now I don't have a notes document here, but if this individual comes up in a bunch of different areas, they're going to show up in this little map down here. Do you see this? There's a reference to Daniel. And if Daniel had 5 other documents related to Daniel, then there might be other documents here, and I might want to look into that more if that's the work that I was doing. I see that there's misspelling down here, and so I can go ahead and clean the misspelling up really quick. And this says glamour and the glamorous. I'm not going to change that, but as I'm thinking about this, just trying to figure out what this document is, I see that this document references an old blog post. So this is interesting. Now, it's not relevant, and some things like paragraph spacing might be worth doing, might not be worth doing, but as I can see, this is simply notes. This is actually a human profile. I used to drop these profiles because very often I was interviewing or working with professors, interviewing or working with authors and different things. So I might have interacted with this person. Anyway, so this is related to this strategic relations document. Now, you see what I just did there? You see the key in the front, the date? Actually, I don't even know what that number is. It might even be a process ID from a script. That is typically unique with at least one other word. And see, now I built the association. And now, since this is about strategic relationships, I'm going to just link in a few. And really quickly, I'm looking. I see that, I don't know why I'm pointing at the screen, but you can see HIP in the file directory. I know that's related to IUN. And so, boom, I just kind of matched some directories there. Let me just real quick, because Tom Parker, and again, these documents, some of them are for 2009. It's 23 years of information. But any of these authors, if I have worked with them in the past, I don't remember sometimes. Nothing against them personally. But if I'm going through my stuff and I have a signed book here somewhere, and then I use this in a book, in a course or something, I would say I'd reach out to them, because again, the business relationship is very valuable. But I don't need to work anymore here, so I hit Control W, close that window. I'm back to what I was doing. At this point, I know this code, and it's related to this concept of asking good questions, and it's been associated here in the front matter. This is the front matter, so I'm done with that. I don't need to go any deeper. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window. I'm going to move it over here on the side, and again, I do this for every comment that is relevant to a pre-existing course or pre-existing activity. And why am I doing this? And this is very important. It's because as information clusters and associates, I will be able to then write a book or a report. So my book, Establish Instant Credibility, is a real thing written by going like this. Now, I could say, oh my gosh, I should write a book called Ask Better Questions. And so I'm going to say, great title, Ask Better Questions. I'm going to have a product association reference. And then, boom, I made an anchor. Lots on this topic, multiple podcasts, and webinar that you're on that webinar. And then I'm done with that. Do you see what we did? So let's talk about the methodologies here, because I'm seeing this in my brain, and as you train yourself, you can see it too. We started out with the initial task. We did get distracted. So there's a tangent off this tree, but we terminated the branch by anchoring a task. Then we went off another direction, and we terminate the task by anchoring the idea. In the information-rich environment, it's very easy to find different things. There are tits and ass on the internet, and sometimes it's hard to search because they keep putting that stuff in front of you. There's Facebook, social media. There's so much stuff that serves our desires, that when you've been, when you're neck deep in a consent order, which is what the SEC, Federal Reserve might write, and it's 100 pages of just legalese, your brain gets distracted. And so you might want to go get something to drink or get some more coffee. And then next thing you know, you haven't got any work done. So if you want to be highly productive, we think about this branching system coming back to the core objective. Even when we search in our own database, now we start with our own records first. Why search the internet if it's a topic you have subject matter expertise in, and all you need is a little cross-reference to maybe write a memo, to write a document, to answer an email. Maybe you want to see a past conversation, and they might be all in your system. Or in specialized systems such as Paper Tiger here, which I use to catalog physical documents. This item in card box D, it's a 4x6 card box. There's an index card in there that is index card in slot 101. That means there's 100 other index cards in there, and it's about answering questions with the internet. And then it's also in the Scrivener application, which is the signal to me that it's actually probably a report I did for a client somewhere. So we could chase that lead and we could finish that report, but if we finish the report, it's not our primary objective. And so we drop an anchor. And you could even say, if this was an important relevant topic, I could even come in here and tag it. So this is a tag that I just put in here. And now I put the tag in the wrong place. Look at that. We don't want to put the tag right there. That's on the person's question. We'll put it up here on the task. This is a designator for tasks. So we're moving along here, okay? I have written a draft. And by the way, I wrote the draft first. I didn't start searching. I just basically looked in my brain and wrote the draft right here. Now, if I'm going to go put together a conversation with artificial intelligence, and now I try not to put notes in the topic, but I'm just going to say answers, but I would want to create a new note. In this case, it's going to be research. And we're going to note what system we're using to do this research. And I try to always show you a system that I didn't pay for. I'm showing you something that you could do yourself. But the researcher in this is ChatGPT 3.5. Now, this is the reason that I do this, okay? Because if I work with a publisher, I have to disclose any materials that I might have used AI with, because AI, the large language model, is very often built on copyrighted materials. And if there's ever a big class action or anything, I will have to back this material out. Most importantly is I don't use AI for research. I use AI for like what we're going to show you right now, which is very beneficial. So I've written a reply to a question on YouTube via comments. Please rewrite to be more concise, and clear for a typical reader. Because I know the audience to that video is just about anybody. Here is the reply. So the reply I copied from the other document. So I'm going to say reference. I put double tabs there. I want to just put reference, and then I'm going to get its reply. So I'm going to go, and then I'm going to go to the top of the document. I'm not editing all that. Grammarly's telling me to edit stuff. Don't get distracted. Stay focused. Don't branch the tree. Don't be a monkey climbing around on a tree. Stay focused, folks. Here we go. I'm going to click the link here, and we'll see what it comes up with. So in the case of a comment on a message board, my original message is perfectly fine. I'm going to put this over here. I will read through that when we're done with it, because I'm going to now convert it. I get what you're saying. Even with this, I end up with too much to sift through. Because these are my words. It's just cleaning it up a little bit faster than Grammarly. I use maps of content for topic sleep hygiene and ongoing projects such as my essentials of operational risk management. And once the book is published, the final materials. Okay, so this is pretty good. This approach might lead to, and by the way, I'm not going to publish this here because I'm going to read it a lot faster when we go back. So I'm going to say this looks really good. Please translate into Korean. Now, why am I asking him to translate into Korean? Because the person has not quite broken English, but there's no punctuation. There's no case or anything. They have a Korean name. I want to deliver something of value to them. And look, it doesn't really cost me that much to do it. And so here we go. We're going to go, please translate into Korean. And so it's translating into Korean. So what I'm showing you here is great for customer service. It could have been an internal document that they're summarizing and they're going to edit down. It's great for high stakes, high ticket sales, because I'm working with people all over the world. I want to make sure they understand what's going on here. And I want to make sure that I'm reaching them in an appropriate way. I also want to make sure this says what I think it says. Now, this is a little long for Google Translate, but I'm just going to give you an example. Sometimes I would do this in a different AI platform. So I'm going to translate the Korean back into English using a different platform to see whether or not it's actually saying what I think it should say. And pretty much it does. And I read pretty fast, so I just scan through there. But if I did that in the same AI session, the tool could just give me the same thing I already gave it earlier. So again, this is a little tip here. I work with people who speak. I used to work for Lenovo. I supported their contract. I was doing DNS for them. And on many of the calls, I was the only person who spoke English on the call, and they all spoke Mandarin Chinese. They all understood English as well, but I could keep up with the calls because I was able to understand the keywords and context. That's how AI is working. Now, I may want to look at this because this name could also be because the characters look slightly different on the font. So let me ask a question here. Is this a Korean name? And how do you know? Okay, because it's all kanji characters that could be rendered strangely in my system here. I'm using Unicode. And so again, do you see what I'm doing here? When I answer this guy's question, I want to give him the best value. I want to make sure that I'm appropriately connecting with them where they're at. If this was a high ticket prospect, as you may have seen on my website, I've got testimonials from clients that didn't know I don't speak their language. Now, the people I work directly with, we spoke English the majority of the time. I used to be able to speak a little bit of Mandarin, a little bit of Spanish, and I could understand some other conversational languages. Again, that's not because I'm any type of special person. It's just because, again, I understand the context of communications, and I use tools. Even long before anybody knew about AI, there were tools available to do translations, or I'd hire somebody to do a translation for me. But the context of this, is this a Korean name? And how do you know? The how do you know is very important, because if it came back and said this language structure is not appropriate for Korean, or family names aren't typically that way, then I would just redo the first part and change the translation. So again, I'm not going to publish this because I'm going to read this a little better to make sure it represents me, but I have something interesting here, and I'm going to show you from the note-taking perspective, how do we boost productivity? How do we get better results in our business? How do we transform the way we interact with tools so that we can do things in the future? Because I have a potential book about asking better questions. And so here's another part here. I do know that the original writing that I had would probably make a better article or show notes than it did a YouTube reply. This is a much better YouTube reply. It's shorter. It's more concise. But the longer document, if expanded, would make a great chapter. So I'm going to say over here, better search notes. Now, my format, I don't want the word notes in there. Better search results. Again, I'm contextually embedding keyword terms in my file names. I'm putting it in the comments here. I'm over here giving a document classification. This is typical document retention materials. And I'm going to say article draft. And then what's the gist of this? How to better search your notes to find valuable insights. See what we're doing here? Building context. And because this over here, and I can say original and better search results, and I can take this text and I can cut it out, and I can come over here and put it in as my draft. All right, I'm putting it as my draft. This is an article draft. This is my response in English. Now I'm going to put an anchor in here because I'm not going to bore you with all that because we're going to get to questions here shortly. Extract from research. And then that document is, see that 1840? 1840. I'm going to give it a creation date in case I get distracted. I can pick up where I left off. So what am I going to do with it? What's the actions I'm going to take? Read over response, translate before posting, verify translation. I'm putting a lot of that verbose in there for the sake of you because it'd take like 5 minutes to do it. Let's summarize what we're talking about here. So the reason I find things, am I going to search for anything in Korean on my system? No. but there's Chinese characters in here. There's Arabic here. There's Spanish, other things. I'm going to have the English and the foreign language translation. I'm going to use AI to verify that I can put those in, because sometimes I'll get an email from a client that'll be written in Chinese, and I want to make sure it really says what it says. And so I'll cut and paste it into AI. I want to make sure that I'm catching the conversation, because this particular prompt worked really well. Sometimes it doesn't. And this one is typical. This works really well. So I could put any language in here, and I could say, please write it in Mandarin Chinese. And then I do the reverse translation with a different tool. It gives me an idea that it says what I think it says. The last thing is that we've got keyword tags. Why are the tags so important? Because I can, if I know a tag or I see a tag, I can actually go in here and just pull up all documents related to a tag. So if I'm going to write a report about asking better questions, I could pull up all the ask questions tags. And now this is in the context of note taking and text search. So I can come up and just pull all my text search. This is actually, the tag associations actually makes bubbles. And so that's kind of what's happening here, this clustering. But when I'm using this graph analysis tool for co-citations, I'm not going to go into detail about what co-citations are, but it's these clustering of information gives me at a glance kind of what we're talking about here. So at a glance, I know that this is related to report 0516A. I can look that up in Paper Tiger to see if I have any physical documents around that report. I can look it up here in this central repository of documents and see if I've written other documents about it. I know that it's related to Obsidian note-taking. Now, what's interesting is there's no reference anywhere of Obsidian note-taking. Now, you see how it's jumping around there. Let me jump back here. I don't know. It doesn't seem to work right there. But I think I froze it. I would want to put a large Obsidian vault. So that's this. See, this is cool. Check this out. Large Obsidian vault. That is it. I did not type anywhere in here. Oh, here you go. Note-taking, a large Obsidian vault. I already made that association, but it now showed me for a different document. This document right here, different document. It's made that association for me. I'm going to reinforce it by putting that in here. That's going to change the scoring. That's going to give me a little bit better map. But I know it's about note-taking. If I was going to drill down on and write about note-taking, I could just click that, drill down into it. I'm actually jumping around here a little bit more. We want to pass along some of these because all three of these documents are related. I'm going to deepen the context by using the same tags because they are very much related. And then also later, what I'm going to do, because right now this webinar call is going to be related to this particular catalog code, I will go in. Actually, let me just show you that real quick because it doesn't take but seconds. Go ahead and start queuing up your questions in the chat. Your questions will be answered here. I'll stay on the call for a little bit longer. Usually we stay on as long as you need me to stay on. Most of you guys are paying to be here. Probably all of you are paying to be here. And there's just a few people on the call. So let me show you this I0516A critical thinking. And this is how fast the brain is going. 003. I remember what's in the queue here. I can edit it down. This cluster of documents is now related to, and this is probably show notes right here, because again, this is a webinar that may get published online. And so this is show notes. And what is this show notes for? Again, look at this anchoring. Show notes for webinar on organizing and increasing productivity of notes. I probably should put a hotkey in so that I can just pop this created part down because it goes pretty much everywhere. And then, you know what this is about? This is about this report right here. Actually, I can just name this whole thing as the webinar. The reason why I'll commit so much effort and time into answering some random stranger's YouTube comment is because I've already written reports and they're all organized and they're all related to each other. And so I'm not I'm not answering their question as much as investing in something that my clients have used in the past. So asking better questions. I might come in later and associate some of these documents, but you can see I back everything into GitHub. I can talk to GitHub with different types of Python tools. You don't need to go that far, but I'm just showing you the versatility of this kind of platform and how I'm able to start clustering ideas. Now, I'm not going to run out and write a report, ask better questions, because I don't see a lot of mapping here. I see the Obsidian talk, and so it's worthy of a webinar that we've scheduled and everybody's come on. It's worthy of taking this slot and answering your questions or developing, showing you the concepts around here, but it's not yet a report. So I probably, and again, look what I'm doing here while I'm talking to you. Ask better questions. So you guys got your questions together. Okay, you can see this is related to the critical thinking report. What I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this particular presentation. I know it's been a little back and forth, but I hope you see how there's a tree of the original outcome that we're looking for. And then every time we branch, we actually anchor by putting a task in the note-taking system. We build associations when we come across things that are related rather than going off on some tangent. We use the catalog codes to anchor our items around clusters of information. Every one of these categories have catalog codes, and I started writing about asking better questions in 2013. We talked about how to use these references in order to cluster information. So there are 12 search results on Ask Better Questions. There are 30, I think it was, search results on the catalog code. If I were to sit down in a session with the objective of taking those 20 and those 37 and compiling them into a report, can you see how the report would come together faster? Another factor involved is if you see a lot of materials, I might want to go do lead generation and do a couple paid consulting gigs around that. And I've helped clients with consulting around the topic of asking better questions, because when it comes to document management and document storage, and more importantly, document recovery, you need to have good language context so that large language models actually work the right way, and so that we can use machine learning and clustering techniques. If you look at my entire database, I have clustering in there that gives me my hot topics, and this is a 0.4 is not really hot enough. I need like a 1 or a 2 before I'm going to write a book, because there hasn't been enough interest. And so what we're doing here, again, is we're building that context, we're building that relationship. And so if you start asking your questions in the comments below, I'm going to stop the recording, and then we're going to deep dive into your questions, and I'll show you some examples. But I'm going to, because I have not published the answer to the gentleman's question, I'm going to go ahead and set that aside here. I'm not going to close these windows because I'll lose them. Oh, that's what I wanted to show you. I knew it, folks, if I'm ever drawing off on tangents like that, it's because I forgot something. Here's how we're going to group these materials together. So we grouped them together with a tag. Oh, that's interesting. Look at this. There is a 003 already. We don't want duplication. I'm going to go 004. I'm going to make a note to catalog. See, when the brain slows down, there's something going on. And this is an okay thing. A lot of people get worried when they can't find the right word for something, or they're not sure that they've got the right information. Their brain gets trapped. See, now we have a unique folder, and I'm just going to pop this stuff into that folder, and then I'll do the cleanup later. The cleanup is important. Metadata matters. Metadata makes this whole thing come together, because the AI, actually, you could run AI through your repository, but there's proprietary information in here, so I don't want to actually train a model. But again, you see what we're doing here real quick? I'm going to move these all into a directory in case after this call I'm tired, I go get something to drink, and I forget. Oh, wait, move file. There you go. And I forget to finish the processing. Okay, now I'm done. No, oh my gosh, I'm just going to stop the recording and answer your questions. I see all the questions coming in on chat over here. I'm Justin Hitt. If you didn't Stay around for the question and answer session. I hope you found this useful. It's about peak performance. It's about getting more out of your notes. It's about structuring your notes in such a way that it becomes a catalyst for writing materials. And then I've also showed you some tips and tricks there. We can go into some details. I'm going to stop the recording and answer the questions. If you missed the question session, this is the From My Desk newsletter, and you would have been on the call if you visited jwhco.com. Again, thanks for watching. Let's get those questions taken care of. I'll see you in the next one.